everyone, and welcome to the Shift Happens podcast. Here, each week, we sit down with senior leaders from across industries to uncover the real stories behind managing change. From breakthrough wins to tough lessons learned, we dive deep into what it really takes to lead through uncertainty. So, whether you're a leader going through transformation or just love a good story about disruption, strategy, and resilience, you are in the right place because when shift happens, great leaders rise. Before we dive into the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Are you a leader navigating constant change and your team is looking to you for answers you don't have yet? The Change Leader program is here to help. At Tona Business Consulting, we work with leaders to turn out chaos into clarity, retain your best people, and lead through disruption without losing trust, momentum, or your own sanity. So if you're facing restructuring, AI shifts, disengagement, or just need your people to rally behind you again, let's talk. Reach out or head over to tonabusiness.com to find more. Today's guest is Gorik Hossepian, with 43 years of experience working for different corporations like Honeywell, Northrop, and Boeing. His vast experience goes from defense, space, air, ground, sea, and even underwater. Goric has led transformative strategies in both commercial and military domains. He's known for driving performance, building innovation cultures, and aligning business vision with real results. Whether it's a new product development, capital allocation, or speaking in front of boards, Goric is the kind of leader who turns complexity into clarity. Let's dive into the mind of a true catalyst for change. Welcome, Goric, to the Shift Happens podcast.
Thank you very much for the kind words, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. I'm very excited. So, Goric, let's talk a little bit about what impactful change that you had in your career and what were the learnings from that?
Yeah, so when you've been in the business for as long as I have been, there are both good parts and bad parts of the experience. I've been very, very fortunate to be part of a number of mergers and acquisitions and putting together, two entities and trying to convert them into a singular organism, if you wish. And as you might guess, there's a significant amount of turmoil involved when you smash two universes together and try to turn it into one cohesive universe. And as a result, that creates both emotional turmoil and professional uncertainty and many other aspects of people's everyday lives. I suppose the part that sticks out more than anything else to me has been, my involvement in a number of these transformations, at least 3 or 4 transformations, where, as I said, two different cultures come together and try to find a place of coexistence. And it's more than just cultural continuity. It's also learning each other's business. It's learning each other's wants and needs. And I will say that the thing that I have always found useful to bring to the table in times like this is a little bit of patience, and most importantly, understanding the position where the different organizations are coming from. And finally, as I've said more than once to the CEOs, don't rush the solution. Let change take its course, and don't rush it any sooner than it needs to be. If it takes 9 months to integrate a business or a year to integrate a business, in a great scheme of things, it makes very little difference. From a financial point of view, it makes very little difference. But from a cultural point of view, it could make the difference between day and night. So it's, I've always focused on trying to understand the two organizations, try to not rush the solution, and make, as an agent of one or the other organization, I've always tried to be focused on being an agent of both organizations, which means you wind up convincing people and selling people on yourself first before you sell them on any ideas you bring to the table as part of the joining of the two. So I would say that was probably, a nice set of guidelines and or values to use when you put together two organizations and not trying to essentially create massive change in both sides of the business. So
I love this example, Goric. I personally have been part of three different major changes with that respect. I was part of the parent company one time. I was already part of the one that was being sold or acquired. So, I love what you're saying about rushing because in all those examples that I personally lived, there was so much pressure and
yeah.
people were so stressed trying to figure out things with very, very tight due dates for things and systems and legal. It's so many things that are involved, right? And also the fact that you mentioned that being an agent for both sides, that's so important to take that place when something like that is happening, and also to welcome the new people, right? For them to feel at home, right? Like, okay, we're here, we are going to add value to this business and all of that. I think that that's very interesting. And so what did you see going good, going right or not going right in these kind of examples of merging?
Well, yeah, as you might guess, not every integration goes well. Sometimes, sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't. I guess the thing that the one example I can come up with quickly that sticks out in my head is where in one of those instances, a year and a half, 2 years into the process, there was still an us versus them attitude.
Oh, uh-huh.
And not only that, and these were major corporations and major organizations trying to meld into one. And I could argue that I suppose both organizations were large enough and had a storied past that the idea of giving one up or compromising for the other was very, very difficult to reach. And that turmoil eventually wasn't handled well. I watched it happen from a distance, and it didn't happen well, and it actually resulted in significant financial loss to the corporation, and more importantly, it resulted in a couple of strategic losses, meaning there was a theory behind the joining of the two companies because they were going to go after certain opportunities, and that turmoil closed the door, the timing door to that mutual opportunity they were going after. And it really took away from the value of the two companies being put together or the two divisions being put together. So I've seen that happen, unfortunately, and that's it's you mentioned earlier something about tight deadlines, and sometimes those really tight deadlines um, cause people to dig in their heels and say, well, the quickest way is to do it my way, and I'm not going to change this. You should change that, right? So I think
Mhm.
it's important to realize that deadlines don't always serve the intended purpose, and in fact, sometimes create the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, I believe so. And I think it's very challenging when specifically you have one example that comes into my mind, two big organizations with
Yeah.
very clear cultures and ways and processes. It's just so many things. And basically the challenge is to build this one culture, this one new culture that is technically not the old one, but not really the new one, and how you mix all these things to this new culture, this new organization that is being born, right?
Yeah, and I'm not sure that a completely new homogenized culture is either necessary or needed for that matter. It's The reason companies join each other, it's because individually they see generally value in each other, and they see that the sum of the two are better than, significantly more valuable than the two combined.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, why mess with success to some extent, right? And when you're putting together, get the best of what you can from each organization and try to find if combining those bests together will add value, but don't necessarily integrate for the sake of integration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's necessary for the success. You
Mm-hmm.
got to keep the eye on the ball, which is I put one on one together and I get three, not necessarily I get one and one together and now I have a singular culture, now I have a singular way of doing things, now I have a singular system. Sometimes I wonder about, so if that were true, there would be no organizations that have wholly owned subsidiaries, right? And
Mm.
you can look at models out there, companies I believe nameless, where their their advertising banner said that we buy companies and then we leave you alone, right? Because each company has a different way of entering a particular market, has a different market focus, has a different way of going to market. And why would I want to get, one solution that fits all? One solution will, by definition, damage some part of the organization. So you just have to be a little careful about integration and change so that you don't create and drive change for the sake of change, that you do it with a purpose in mind, and you do it, as I said, where you can get the bang for the buck. If I
Mm-hmm.
have, if I have visibility, if I have an ERP system of A and an ERP system of B, so long as I have visibility, who cares which system I'm using, right? So why drive a solution that you don't need to? Don't fall on your sword for things you don't need to.
I do appreciate you reminding me of that, which now I was thinking about one example specifically of a company that I was part of that they decided that one part of the operation was not going to be fully integrated, and it actually worked very well. And yes, with the purpose in mind, right? I mean, you're
Yeah,
changing what you're changing, what makes sense. There is a strategy behind, there is a purpose, and then you change what doesn't make sense. You just leave it like that. And
yeah,
if it's working well, it's working well. Yes, I agree. There's not one size fits all for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I like it. Yes. And about that, do you have any example around managing resistance when going to change, or any best practices that you share with our audience around that?
Yeah, so I think you and I have kind of discussed this in the past in passing. So uh, um, I think the best thing to do is to focus on the reasoning behind the resistance. I'd like to ask the question, why am I getting the resistance am I getting? First and foremost, dig into the reasons as to why. And I would venture to bet that more than 50% of the time it's driven by fear. It's driven by fear of the unknown, the fear of what the future is going to bring and how the change might impact people. So I would say confront those fears. Don't let them fester and don't leave them unanswered. And certainly don't ignore them. I would suggest that we face the facts and address people's fear. It's sort of like I'm sure you've heard of the Stockdale principle, where Admiral Stockdale was a prisoner of war for, I don't know, 10, 15 years in Vietnam. And he said, in his famous book, he said that the prisoners who suffered the most every year were the ones who always thought they were going to go home by Christmas. And, his trick was don't, confront the brutal facts, but don't lose hope. It's that confronting of the brutal facts that I think is one of the most important things you should do to eliminate, at least, reduce the resistance to change, and focusing on people's emotional stability and their psyche in the process is one that, corporations and human beings in high stress positions tend to sacrifice first and foremost. And
Mhm.
so maybe it's because I've learned from my children and my wife, who are all psychologists, to focus on people's psyche. But I think addressing the fear, confronting the fear, and also understanding the reason behind the pushback or the resistance is one that's worth investing some time in, even if it takes away from your integration schedule or some deadline you have set. Understand why um, that's going on first and foremost.
Mhm. Yes, I agree. And communication plays a big challenge in terms of how to drive the communication right, how to plan accordingly so then everybody's on the same page, alignment, right? So when it's about that, would you share any practices that you have been using along the years in terms of how to build a good and effective communication plan?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting you brought up communication. It's one of those words that is bandied about very, very easily. And I would say I probably twitch every time I hear the word communication because I don't look at it as a singular event. I look at it more of it is an ongoing flow that you have to focus on, not just, I call a staff meeting and I talk to everybody and say, here, flow this thing down. It's more than that. It is to me, it's, sort of like the analogy of it is feed your organization a river of information, a river that flows the whole time. And every once in a while, and focus on why they're doing that and why the organization is functioning. I would suggest that in implementing change or being a change agent or being part of a change in a process,
Mhm.
but the one thing people need to start thinking about and do more of is selling the organization on themselves before the organization will even listen to them and listen to their ideas. If you're viewed as the representative of this other organization that's come in and they are now here to take over, for instance,
Mhm.
what are the chances of them putting much credence and credit and credibility to anything I say or you want to communicate? So companies tend to walk in and say, "Oh, listen to this. We bought you because you fit well in this part of the organization, and let us tell you what great things we're going to do together." Well, that's great, but how does that answer what great things you're going to do for that person? What great things you're going to do for that department? What great things you're going to do for the people who invested the last 20 years of their lives in that particular career? How are you going to address the fact that they know there's somebody else in the other organization that's probably doing the same job they are doing in this organization? What's going to happen to them? They don't know the answers to those things. You may know, and but you're already part of the team that's doing the change management process. They're not. They have no idea what's going on. So focusing some time on selling people on your credibility and your ideas first is really important to do. And then I would say, once you do that, and once the organization realizes you're not some six-headed monster here to come and slash and burn, you're here to maximize um, benefit for the two organizations, then you have to focus on a constant communication of what's the real strategic benefit, what's the real strategic objective. I found out that I would get people in a room, everybody in a room, once a quarter, and give them a simple, no more than 2 slide update as to where we are. Here's how we're doing business wise. Here's what's coming, and here's what we're going to do, and here's why. And then I would open the floor to questions, and I mean everybody in the company. I don't mean certain organizations or the leadership of the company. I mean everybody in the organization. You would be surprised by the quality of the questions asked by the guys, a lowly technician on the production line who does the same thing every day, and and wants to find a connection between that simple task he does to a bigger scheme of a corporation. And they're not looking for a grandiose connection. They are looking for just a personal connection. So I think, to me, those are all various aspects of communication. If you want to sell someone on you, you have to communicate with them. If you want to sell someone on the need for change, you got to communicate that strategic vision. And if you want to sell someone on the whole idea, you need to make the communication process simple and not formal, and make it informal. Go down to the line and talk to people. Say hi to them in the morning, right? When that comes from the leadership of an organization, it goes a long way in melting these massive glaciers of ice between the lowly hourly employee on the floor and the suit that sits in the corner office. So communication is a full-time job, and you need to look at it like, am I feeding my organization a steady stream of information that's relevant to them? And if I'm not doing something right, right? Look inside the mirror and ask yourself the question, what are you not doing right? And don't think of it as an individual. I have never been able to think of it as an event. I need to go communicate with the team about something. It just, I don't think that works very well. And people will realize that it's fake. You'll be surprised how quickly people read through you and realize it's fake. It's not genuine.
Yeah, that can play against you for sure when you just try to pretend something, right? In big presentations and things like that. Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, and I love what you said about basically building a culture of communication. It just doesn't have to have doesn't have to be an event, but really creating the habit of being out there, connecting to the people from the top to the bottom. It doesn't matter what level you are. And the other day we were talking in a podcast as well, exactly the same thing. And we even made a post recently about leaving the bubble, right? Just leave the bubble, right? Just go and connect to people. You are gaining so many things in so many ways, like the trust, the credibility, bonding, right? So many things you get by just taking some time, being intentional, and be there with your team, right?
Yeah, I'll give you a funny anecdote. At least I think it's a funny anecdote. One of the times I was talking to an organization, we had just purchased them, and I was part of the acquisition team and so on. And I had a all hands employee meeting on day one, introducing myself, and I spoke to a couple of guys ahead of time, and I said, I want you to ask me some really stupid question.
Okay, I like it.
I want you, and I don't want it to be business related. Ask me something about me and make it stupid and make it funny. And so we agreed that one was going to raise their hand and ask me, when I wake up in the morning, which side of the bed do I get out of, the right side or the left side?
Okay.
And I tell you, the question was asked, the entire organization cracked up. I had nothing but this big laughter, and then I answered the question. I get out of the right side of the bed generally, right? It's a habit
Me
I
too,
have.
by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it was just aimed at, I'm a human being. I'm just like you, you know. I go to bed, I sleep, I get up, I get dressed, I come to work. I have the same interests you do. It's these little simple tricks that, you mentioned getting out of the bubble. Yeah, make yourself human. Don't be an executive, be a person.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I agree 100%. Thank you for that. So shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about your vision for the future. So what do you think it takes to be successful, like in the next 5 years? And what is your vision considering the industries that you've been part of? What do you see is going on? What does it take to be very successful?
Wow, this is the $64,000 question, I guess. I don't believe our industry has gone through my industry, the aerospace and defense world, has gone through such a rapid transformation as the last 3 years. I think the only time I would suggest that we fundamentally reinvented ourselves was World War II, when the automotive business became a defense business and the whole country mobilized towards an objective. The world has become far more dangerous than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and has become far more volatile. And interestingly enough, if you just watch the TV news reports, the nature of conflicts has changed. It's no longer, and let's hope that it stays this way forever, but it's no longer World War II or World War I, where it's massive destruction. It's very surgical, at least they try to be surgical. And it doesn't put human beings, soldiers, in the line of fire as much as it used to. It is far more technologically advanced and technology driven. And it's interesting because if you look at the trend, the amount of intelligence, artificial intelligence, the famous terminology, imparted in equipment is tremendously advanced than before. I give you a simple example. I drive a couple of hundred miles, every couple of weeks to go to a place. And I drive a simple car. I don't drive a fancy car, but I drive a simple car. And I have the ability to get in this car, not just put it on cruise control, but set a limit, and the car automatically slows itself down. It never veers off of the lane. And I can just take my foot off the gas pedal and enjoy the view, driving 75 miles an hour. I just told you I speed all the time, right? And so that's in a regular car. You could only imagine the technology available to some of the warfighting platforms. So to me, managing that change rate for technology becomes critical and crucial. And the speed for developing technology continues to get faster and faster and faster, because the building blocks continue to be smarter and smarter. So to me, being able to manage the pace of change from a technology point of view, and not only that, but the pace of change from a human point of view. Today, I hire a college grad, and every college grad I hire is fully expecting to be the CEO in the next 5 years. When I got hired way back when, 40 some odd years ago, I was happy I had a job, and I knew that I had to earn my way. That's not the way the new generation comes through the system. The new generation has expectations and doesn't necessarily depend on the old institutions, because they have been witness to and have grown in an environment of innovation, environment of startups, in not a family member who works for GM for 3 generations, right? That's not what they're used to. Their change for them is so rapid and so fast, and they are so much more comfortable with it than I was, or dare to say you were at some point at the same age as they were. So I see a significant need for all of us to learn how to embrace change at a much rapid pace, and at the same time learn how to handle this massive wave of technological change and advance that's coming our way. And my prediction is, 5 years from now, we would be talking about things we couldn't even dream of today. So I think learning to operate with a great pace of change is critical to all of us.
Oh, 100% agree. And it's a challenge, right? I mean, as you put like the different generations together working in an organization, the expectations and all, it's very challenging to manage. I love the diversity and the different thoughts and experience all together. I think It makes a team very successful, but managing the change and managing the ways, especially the pace, it's very different. So
5 years ago, 6 years ago, somebody said we should go to a 980 schedule, and I said, "Are you kidding me? You're going to lose a day out of the week worth of efficiency. What are you talking about?" It proved to be completely wrong. We gained efficiency when we integrated that approach, just because of the nature of the people that are coming into business. The pandemic sent all of us home and forced us to learn to work from home, and we all thought the world was going to come to an end. And it did the exact opposite. Traffic reduced. People are more productive because they're working from home. There's a lot of positions don't need to come to the office. It forced the change, and we had to accept it. We had to accept it during the pandemic. We didn't have a choice. And every once in a while, we have to operate like there is another pandemic and force the change and make things differently and get a little bit uncomfortable and do things a little bit differently. Those are all just lessons for me. I didn't think working from home was going to work. Now I can't imagine I thought that way, right? Simply because I do so much better when I'm sitting in my office versus spending an hour and a half each way driving to work every day. So this is what I mean by the pace for change is going to speed up.
Yes, same here. I do prefer working from home too. I love the in-person contact, but the flexibility, right? It's not that thing that you have to be there at 8 and leave at 6 or what, but really have this flexibility. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Very positive in many ways. So I got many key takeaways from you today, Goric, just already thinking about wrapping up for today's episode. I love what you said about patience, right? And everyone has their pace around change when there is merging and acquisitions. Just take your time. You may get a little impact in finance, however, you get a huge and positive impact on the other side, on the side of the people involved on that. I love what you said as well about the culture of communication that has to be a constant, right? And what else? Yes, you mentioned about being an agent of change nowadays, and also the super rapid pace that things are changing nowadays and how we can adapt as a key for success now and in the future. So any other key takeaway would you like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I would say don't take everything I say seriously, but I would say, look, these are exciting times. As I said, the world is dangerous and volatile, and people could sit down and worry about it, but I choose to look at this as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for the world to change over the next few years in more fundamental ways than we could have imagined 5 years ago. And I think turn what you smell coming your way into an opportunity and take advantage of that. Don't fight it. Just sort of learn to deal with it and learn to accept it, because it's gonna, whether you like it or not, change will happen. It's sort of like death and taxes, right? It will happen.
Shift happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Goric. I really appreciate everything you shared with us, and I'm pretty sure the audience will love what I'm hearing because I'm loving it too. Thank you. Thank you to my audience, and see you next time to the Shift Happens podcast.
Thank you very much.